Shalom v'shavua tov, alechem, ze Moshi'im. I am your rabbi today, and this is Unwalled Synagogue, U.S. Don't pay attention to the walls you see behind me. Those don't exist. Forget about those. There are no walls here. Only windows, like the one you have open in front of you. And that's all you need to join in, be a member of this synagogue, this Unwalled Synagogue. So welcome. I also go by Rav Mo. So I am actually, if you notice the title of the stream, it's the exact same as yesterday. I filmed this originally. I went live on Shabbat to have a sort of, not really even a service, more like a discussion. This is the kind of synagogue that I run here. I don't do formal, prayers in this online synagogue service that's posted here on YouTube. What I usually do is discussions on Torah portions and different things like that. Usually, as you know, I'm a musician, Messianic Jewish alternative rap, as I call it, MJAR. I might try to find a different name for it at some point, but that's what I do. So a lot of the time I might tie that in, but usually for this playlist, this Unwalled Synagogue that you're watching, it's just going to be straight Torah portion discussion, Torah discussion, and it's fun. We get to take an unorthodox approach to interpreting the Torah and the Word of God, and it may not be orthodox. This is far from the way a usual synagogue service would function. I'm not an officially Israeli recognized rabbi. I mentioned that in my past video, but since I'm taking that video down, I've made it private so I can get rid of it because it was just didn't have everything up there. Let me just go through that again. Typically, a rabbi in Hebrew means teacher, talmid, disciple, student. And so usually you would have teachings brought down from teacher to student. And that's how the chain of learning would go, dor la dor, generation to generation. And that's how that would transpire. You see in the Bible, in the book of Acts, Rav Shaul talks about learning under Rabbi Gamliel, which is one of the famous, well-known rabbis in Jewish history, in Judaism. So, he talks about that, but he even mentions that it pales in comparison to his credentials won by him by the blood of the Lamb, Yeshua, the Messiah, which is above all. He's the rabbi above all rabbis, the only rabbi through whom the entire world, Kol HaOlam, all the peoples, all the nations, Ha'anashim, Ha'goyim, have come to knowledge and revelation of the Word of God, HaTorah. No Jew was doing that. There's not a single Jew in the world that was bringing the Torah to the nations. The only one, not even Moshe, right? The greatest prophet to ever live, right? Not even he was doing it. Only Yeshua the Messiah is the one who taught that, and his followers, his Talmidim, all 11 of them went out and did just that, right? So, that being said, I'm not a recognized rabbi in that traditional sense of passing down. I didn't have a rabbi over me that was recognized in Israel. I have a friend of mine, a former friend. We haven't spoken in years. I have no idea how he's doing right now, but at the time he was wanting to be a rabbi and was going to go to yeshiva in Israel. He was born here in the U.S., as far as I know, and was going to go out there to yeshiva with his parents' permission. And the local rabbi whose synagogue we attended, so-called rabbi, his blessing, he was going to go out there to Israel to join a yeshiva. I think he was going to go to Israel. Yeah. And when he met with the head rabbi there, a known rabbi that we were actually, okay, he's a prestigiously known rabbi, he grilled my friend about his faith in Yeshua and told him things like, well, you're going to be talked bad about. People are going to make fun of you. They're going to talk down to you. They're going to insult you, and you can't say anything back, he said. You can't do anything about it. You can't do anything. You cannot retaliate. And my friend was like, okay, I am game. Let's do that. And then in the end, I think the rabbi was just trying to discourage him. But after he said all that, he said to him, I'm sorry, but we still can't accept you into the program. Even after he made it clear, my friend made it clear that he was willing to endure the abuse. Our forefathers endured much worse for this faith. And he was willing to go through that. And I applaud him. I also pity him for that because he didn't deserve that. But he was willing to go through that just to keep the faith and walk in it. So what bothers me is that we are not viewed as Jewish people or as Jews from the Orthodox side of things. Of course, we understand that that's been a schism ever since our faith first began, ever since, the events of the book of Matisyahu or Matidyahu, HaSefer Matisyahu. So we know and understand that as believers in Moshiach Yeshua. But that's why when I call myself a rabbi, I am not saying that I am an Orthodox qualified rabbi. No human being gave me my qualifications. Just as no man gave me this faith in Moshiach Yeshua, and no man can take it away. I am doing what God told me to do. Now, we all know that Yeshua said, let no man call you rabbi. But we also know that he also said, you must hate your father and mother, right? We know that that's not literal. In the same sense. It's not that we can't be called rabbi. What God was saying was, don't seek glory for yourself. Don't try to make people call you by titles and get everyone to acknowledge you like you're, you want the titleship. You want to be acknowledged by people. Don't seek praise from people. If God has called you to teach. Now, I'm a rabbi and I call myself as such so that people know my occupation, what I do. The music is for the sake of that. The music, I can't help but make music. I just like making music. I like rapping. I like singing, making beats. So like the beats you hear right now, this song from the album Yachal, I believe this is from. But the point is, I make music. I can't help but do that. I teach. I can't help but do that. It's like the prophet Hanavi Yirmiyahu said, it's a fire shut up in my bones. If I don't speak, I'll go crazy. This fire burns. I can't keep I gotta speak. I gotta open my mouth, right? And give word to the a sound to the word of God and just open up and just start talking about it. I can't help it. So that being said, that's why I call myself Rav Mo, because that's the calling that I fully believe that God has given me through music as well. Also, what else was it? Yes, we'll talk about that when we get there, I guess. But let's go ahead and go on, because I've already been talking way too long, and it's already been how long? Like about 8 minutes. It took me about just as long last time to get through the whole thing about being a rabbi unofficially, unofficially. But I wanted to look at today's Torah portion. I'm going back in time. Like I said, I'm way behind on the Parashot, I admit, as far as doing teachings on them. And I've been kind of absent a lot. It's been interesting. Right around Thanksgiving, things just kind of got really busy. Then Hanukkah came. And again, I apologize. On my Facebook page, I made posts for Hanukkah. I was excited. Hey, Hanukkah Sameach. But the things that I posted, the pictures that I posted, were not accurate. They were pictures of menorot, not Hanukkiyot, not Hanukkiyas. They were like menorahs with, the 6 branches, 3 on each side, and the one in the middle, when they should have been the 9-branch Hanukkiyah. So I posted those pictures and I was off. And if you remember my last video that I did, not the one that I shot yesterday, but the 13th video episode of Unwalled Synagogue, going through Parashat Sarah, I was lacking. I did not get much sleep, and you could see it. I think I may have even dozed off on camera. Pretty embarrassing, but I tried. I made it my goal to get this teaching out there. I talked about the fact that I ran 5 miles about the day before, and the day before that, I had actually worked out. I had done like 100 squats. Not easy. I had muscle failure going through that, which is expected. Hadn't done leg exercises in a long time. Did some butt bridges, which is like to work out my glutes, and a static exercise stance that you just hold until failure and just keep going for like 4 minutes. And I hadn't done that in a long time, so my legs were just like, what is going on? And then to run 5 miles right after that, the next day, carrying up like almost 40 pounds of weight. It was not the easiest. So it was a workout. And then after that, when Shabbat started, I had gotten cleaned up, gotten showered, gotten ready for it, and I was just tired, yo. I was just exhausted. So today, I'm fresh. God has refreshed me. God has given me a task to teach, and that's what I'm going to do. So today, I'm going into Parashat 6, Parashat Toldot. And it is the 6th Torah portion. Again, I know I'm not caught up. I plan to get caught up. Who knows? I may even do multiple videos today just to get caught up. Who knows? But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get into it. I wanted to take an unorthodox approach to this Torah portion because typically there's so many things to focus on this Torah portion. It's a lot of stuff to look at. For example, in this one we get everything going on with Yaakov and Esav, his brother, or as many call it, Jacob and Esau. But before I get into any of that, let's take a moment just to pray and ask God for wisdom and discernment, and pray that God would bless us with His Ruach HaKodesh to open our eyes to new things in this Torah, and that He would teach us. B'Shem Yeshua. So, Abba, first and foremost, forgive us of our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Abba Yah, be pardon us of our iniquity, open our eyes to see. B'Shem Yeshua. May you bless us with wisdom, and you speak through me, and bless those who are watching. I don't know if anyone's watching. I may have no one watching or at all out of my 43 subscribers. It was 42 not too long ago, so hey, I got one. But Baruch Hashem, whoever's listening, whoever hears this, whether they're watching it live or later on, years after it's recorded, or even that, who knows when someone will see this. May what they hear bless them. Abba, may you please speak through me, and I humbly ask that you will please guide me. Be with my spirit, be with my heart, be with my mouth, and be with my mind, and help me to see and understand and to teach your word, B'Shem Yeshua, Abba, with your help, to lead them to revelation and understanding of Moshiach Yeshua, of your Torah, of your word, and to have a close relationship with you, and to know you, the one true God, and your Son, Yeshua, the Messiah. B'Shem Yeshua, Abba, Torah Rabba, Amen, Amen, Abba. So, Amen, let's go and make this happen. Hope you guys, Hanukkah was awesome. While the world was, last night, according to the sun calendar, it's the first day of their year, their new year, which is, I don't celebrate it because it is that celebration of that holiday, that is today, it's linked to pagan worship, so I don't celebrate that. Plus, we know, as Messianic believers, we have the biblical new year that God has given us to celebrate, and it starts in the spring, but also the head of the year, which we just came through all the high holy days of the fall season. So we have our New Year's. So there is that. But anyway, I hope you guys are safe. There were gunshots, and I'm sure there are fireworks going off somewhere. Yeah, it's just it can be dangerous out there during this time of year. So, but anyway, let's look at the Torah portion. I'm gonna gorgeous, handsome face. I'm gonna move it somewhere else. There we go. That was weird. So that, I'm not taking up so much space. Let's see. Yeah, this is good. Well, no, because it's great. Click on the numbers above each word, and it'll show you some cool things in the text. You can look at Hebrew words and things. It'll show you the CJ, the BDB Briggs Drivers Briggs, or is it Briggs Drivers Brown? It's been a while. The Hebrew lexicon. You can look at definitions and stuff there, and it sources them. It sources another lexicon as well. I forgot which one, because I know there's two big ones, right? There's the Brown Drivers Briggs, and then there's the other one, the Hebrew lexicon on the Tanakh. So cool stuff. But anyway, let's go ahead and read 19. Here we go. Here's the history of Yitzchak, Abraham's son. Now, this is Bible Gateway, right? I'm reading from the CJB, Complete Jewish Bible Translation, translated by a David H. Stern. And the thing about him is, sometimes he'll intentionally mistranslate something to make it match up with the English equivalent, which makes sense and is definitely appreciated. However, there are times when he does that and it doesn't make sense, and he actually mistranslates and loses the actual meaning of what's trying to be said. I don't like that so much. So this is why if you want my honest opinion, while the CJB is amazing and it does many things right, it definitely works hard and does a great job introducing believers to the Jewishness of the text, even in the Brit Hadashah, because many people want to cite it as it's not Jewish, it's for the Gentiles, man, it's written in Greek. The Old Testament written in Hebrew for the Hebrews, but the New Testament is for us. Well, we're not Greeks, so it doesn't matter as far as that's concerned. And even though it is written in Greek, the truth is it's a translation of a authentically Jewish faith. Even if they wrote in Greek, they were expressing Jewish ideas of a Jewish faith about a Jewish God to a Jewish people. Because if you believe in Yeshua, you're one of us. Okay. Now, just putting that out there. So that's why the best translation is the original Hebrew. If you want my honest opinion, the best translation is the original Hebrew. You're going to get so much out of that. There's so much that you're going to miss looking at it in English. But for the sake of convenience, you pray for the English. You're not a sinner for reading the English Bible or the Greek or Spanish or whatever language you read it in, Japanese, Korean, Chinese, or Cantonese rather. Read it by all means, but in Hebrew. It's off same verse, 25 verse 19. The word there is it's the word. You see at the bottom, it's translated as the generations. Now, why I want to point that out is because it can mean that also. It's important to know. I think that's more on par with what's being talked about. Because why do I like this translation of it more than history? Look at this, and I put this in the title and in the description of this stream. This Torah portion starts and ends with taking a wife. That's very interesting. Why is that? Very, very, very interesting. I want to focus on that a lot. So it makes sense to say generations, right? Because it starts off with Abraham having begot Yitzchak and so on, and going into his wife, and then Yitzchak took Rivka when he was 40 years old. Finally got married. 40-year-old virgin. Am I right? No, pardon the pun. No Steve Carell, but I'm pretty sure Yitzchak was a much more morally sound 40-year-old virgin than Steve Carell's character. I haven't seen the movie, probably never will, honestly. But anyway, Zelotov, it is not T-nude or appropriate for the stream, but I'm just trying to make it funny, so sorry. Children fought inside her so much. She asked if it's going to be like this, why go on living? That's verse 22. So she went to inquire of Adonai. I just want to point this out like I did last time. I love that she goes to God. She's like, man, this is what's going on, right? She didn't just say, man, I'm going to go to my husband, ask him to talk to God for me and find out what's going on. She goes to God herself, right? We all know that yes, the man is the head of the house, but and he goes to God on behalf of his family, yes. But everyone is expected to do just that. We all need our own personal relationship with God. So all the women of God out there, all my Ishtei Chayil, our women of valor who pray to God directly, that's an awesome thing. A woman of prayer is a powerful thing, man. Such a powerful thing. Anyone who prays, but I especially encourage our women to pray. I know in Jewish culture, there's a lot of, from what I understand, a lot of times they are big on the corporate prayer being really big for the men because the women are always in a state of prayer, they say, so they don't need to join us or be a part of that. I disagree with that. I don't think either gender is more spiritual or in tune with God than the other. Your gender doesn't define your relationship with God. That's BS, in my humble opinion. Forgive my French. I don't subscribe to that at all. Men and women, we need to come together. Even in the Brit Hadashah writings, or the apostolic writings, the writings of the emissaries to the churches, we see where I think it's Rav Shaul who talks about, it may have been him, it may have been Kefa, who talks about if you must deny each other, husband and wife, of sexual intimacy, one of the very few exceptions where it's okay to do that is for prayer. But even then, only for a short time, right? So come back together soon. But he makes it clear that the husband and the wife, they're if they should stay and let them both, let it be because they're both praying, right? So just nowhere is it indicated for the Messianic believer that we should, that either gender is better or worse than the other. It's just, we all need to see God together. So upon praying, God says to her, there are two nations in your womb. From birth, there will be two rival peoples. One of these peoples will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. I want to point that out because it's just something, I don't even have any insight on it per se. I kind of have an idea, and I think this is hitting on something important. One of these peoples will be stronger than the other, comma, and the older will serve the younger. Now, what I thought was really cool about this is that if you look at it, when he says one will be stronger than the other, one way of looking at that, because he doesn't specify. He just says one of these peoples will be stronger than the other. And then says, and the older will serve the younger. So it's almost prophetic. And I believe that there may be writings, correct me if you guys want to, tell me about what's written in the Talmud or some other Jewish text that you may have read about that goes into detail about this. But my understanding of it is this. One of these peoples will be stronger than the other. This is describing, of course, Yaakov and Esau. This is talking about the continual positions being switched. How there will be times where Yaakov will be more victorious over Esau, and then there are times where Esau will be victorious over Yaakov, and you'll have this time where they just kind of go back and forth. I believe that's what it's describing as what's going to be the pattern of behavior between these two peoples throughout history. And then at the end, comma, will be that the older will serve the younger in due time. I think that's kind of like speaking prophetically of how things will happen in the future. So I thought that's really interesting to point out. I feel like it's just instantly just speaking prophetically, obviously, but just the fact that it doesn't specify who will be stronger than the other. I think it's because it kind of changes throughout. As the people of Yaakov, the house of Yaakov, Kol Israel, would sin against God, forsaking the covenant, doing what God sees as evil. The house of Esau was strengthened against them, and God would administer them as a rod of correction to bring discipline upon Israel. And when we repented, then God would give us victory again, and would give us a relief from the house of Esau and give us power over them. So it kind of depends, Now I asked you guys to kind of tell me your interpretation of what you read, if there's anything in the Tanakh that talks about it, because I say that because I don't read or if there's anything written in the Talmud that talks about it, because I don't read the Talmud per se. I don't read it. I don't have a copy of it. I have a copy of the Art Scroll edition Tanakh, but I do not have a copy of the Talmud, and I don't. Maybe eventually at some point I will. I'm very careful about it because while I know it's called the Oral Torah, I'm more inclined to the actual written Torah. Pardon me, because the Torah was first of all oral itself, spoken and then recorded, as we know it's written of in HaSefer Yochanan. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. It wasn't that. Does that mean that it was written first? I believe that it was spoken first. That's my personal understanding of it. That the Word itself embodied the one who we know of to be the living Torah, the living Word of God, Yeshua, the Messiah, the Var Chai, the living Word. So El Chai, the living God. So I make the Torah of God, the Tanakh, my touchstone. Now I do read extra biblical books like the Apocrypha, the Book of Maccabees, the Book of Wisdom, the Book of Judith, the Book of Tobit, right? Or Tobit, or Tovit. I don't know how you say it, but read. But I know that that's a thing, and I remember that, and I'm like, this is these are good books. They just weren't canonized. And I'm not saying that because they weren't canonized that they're not of God, or because they weren't canonized that the Tanakh or the Bible is not of God, or it's mistranslated, or something's wrong. No, it was canonized the way it was, and regardless of how it happened, I believe that it's still the written text that God has given us for every good thing, for to equip us. It's all God breathed. It's just, but there are extra biblical books that I read. Not just the Apocrypha, the book of Yasher, which the historian Josephus, the historian, which was also who was also a priest or a Kohen during the time of Yeshua, who saw things. He talks about the book of Yasher. There are two translations. One of them is more accurate than the other. One of them has a lot more discrepancies and numerical, quantitative discrepancies when describing quantities of something. The other one has one discrepancy of a quantity that's something, but that's like the only real discrepancy. And it's actually everything else checks out. I believe in the validity of that book. It's even referenced in the Tanakh, in the Bible. It talks about the book of Yasher, and the fact that we can find in it, things written. It confirms it with that. So I thought that was pretty cool. Even in the Brit Hadashah, you see where Yehuda or HaSefer Jude, the book of Jude, he talks about some extra things that are not written in the Tanakh, like Yeshua arguing over the body of Moshe with the adversary. It's like, what? That happened? Like, what? Where is that written at? Where can I find that book? So there's all kind of extra biblical books that are good to look at and read. But however, for me, I don't read the Talmud a lot. I know a lot of what is written in it. There are a lot of things written in it by people who, during the time of Moshiach, or even after the time of Moshiach, deliberately reject Moshiach, and because of that, that makes me less inclined to trust in the Talmud. Because did I say Tanakh? I'm in Talmud. In the Talmud, there are people who author things in it that willingly reject Yeshua as the Messiah, and because of that, I have a problem with it. Now, it may be that the Talmud was actually written by people who before the time of Moshiach. I know there's talk about the great men of the assembly, and I think it's talk about that Shaphat Shemuel or Samuel, who was a judge, that he actually in the Bible, obviously, that he wrote in it, and so it seems like the validity of it is has to be legit if he's one of the authors of it, right? But I can't confirm or say that that I fully trust it as much as some of these other books. It's just one of those things, man. I'm very careful of it. Because of that, I welcome people to comment on my videos, say, hey, well, this was in the Talmud, and sometimes I'll quote things. I was an attendee or a congregant of Sar Shalom under Rabbi Mordecai Griffin back when I attended there. I'm no longer affiliated with Sar Shalom or with Lapi Judaism or with Aaron Mark Griffin, or Mark Aaron Griffin as he calls himself now. The entire synagogue, as I know, after I left, shortly after, disbanded because of the actions of one Aaron Mark Griffin, whom I no longer refer to as rabbi for reasons. If you know about his story of his history, you can look it up. I'm not going to get into it here, but I've known him personally, and so it's hard for me to recognize him and call him rabbi because he's not my rabbi anymore. But I have no more right to call myself rabbi than he does. I mean, he's actually of Jewish descent, though, so there is that. But as far as I know, he didn't go to any kind of yeshiva or anything. But he has been a leader over a congregational leader longer than I have, and I can hardly call this online experience a congregation. But if I may be so bold as to do that, so not trying to take away from his credentials, but a personal relationship that I've had with him has affected the way that I see things now, and recent, maybe not as recent events that have happened in the past 2 or 3 years, and even a little bit before that, have caused me to change the way that I see him. But while I was at Sar Shalom, I was taught things that were taken from the Talmud, and oftentimes without knowing it, without realizing it. So I may quote something that's from the Talmud, and you may say in the comments, "Oh, hey, you're quoting the Talmud. I thought you didn't like the Talmud, Moshi'im." Well, some things I might quote from it, and if I know that's from the Talmud, I'll try to credit that. But a lot of times I won't know, because things that were taught there weren't always. I didn't always know what was said at Sar Shalom, if it was from the Talmud or not. So I'm not trying to discredit the Talmud. I just ask God to give me more wisdom and discernment, and give me more understanding of it, if it's really from him or not. Because I question things, question everything, even question the Tanakh. Read it, have questions, ask God. This is what being a Talmid or a student is all about. But back to the point, I wanted to focus on not the obvious things, because we can go to this and then go into it goes talking about the two peoples, and as we see here, the first came out reddish, covered with hair like a coat, and they named him Esau. Verse 24. I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit. When the time for delivery came, there were twins in her womb. The first to come out was reddish and covered it all over with hair like a coat. So they named him Esau, completely formed. that is, having hair already. Verse 26, then his brother emerged from his hand with his hand holding Esau's heel. So he was called Yaakov. He catches by the heel. He supplants. Yitzchak was 60 years old when she bore them. Now, what I want to point out again is this common thing. As we know, anti-Semitism is on the rise. It always has been. And until the age of man comes to a close, until God steps in to put an end to it, it will just continue growing. But there's been a lot of people that have said things about the Jewish people, and one of these anti-Semitic attitudes is this idea that Jews are somehow satanic and involved in trickery and witchcraft and are demonic and involved in magic and things of this sort. And it's very, very sad to hear people go on to these lengths. And oftentimes, I'll say always, every time, these arguments are based upon just anti-Semitic views and prejudices that have no base, no foundation. Even if you want to say that there were people in Jewish history that practiced witchcraft, that were people known, even there's talk about Melech Shlomo, King Solomon, who was involved in witchcraft in some kind of way. I've read some texts that have tried to go into detail about that. I'm not sure about that, the validity of that. I won't deny it either because I haven't read into it as much. Even if that were the case, you can. That by no means is that a proof that all Jews practice witchcraft. Or people will talk about certain families out there and well-known names that I won't mention that have influence in the world and who have done maybe not so good things and are known for being involved in witchcraft. You can't just say thus that every Jew is a trickster or whatever. Now, the name for Yaakov seems to imply that. It seems to imply that because the name means he supplants, he catches by the heel, as we see it said. So how do we combat that mindset? I want to look at what Yeshua said. A lot of Christians may find it easy to believe and have anti-Semitic statements because the Jews killed Jesus. They're the Jesus killers. These Jews, we got to oppose them. Many people forget that the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, is an actual Christian organization, is what they call themselves as. They define themselves, I think, on I remember reading about how on their website they define themselves as a group of Christian men and women who have certain beliefs. And it's not too unlike what you think about the Holocaust. From what I was taught, Hitler, the way he organized it, he used a lot of things established, and he got a lot of his ideas and things from the church, which is not surprising because anti-Semitism is one of the founding blocks of Christianity. All Christianity, its inception is anti-Semitism. That is part of its foundation, is anti-Semitism. It is a political movement that was designed to usurp the Jewish faith and weaponize it against Jews and every people of the earth for the sake of conquest. That's what Emperor Constantine did. The Council of Nicaea. I won't get into it now because there's a lot to talk about. You may be upset hearing that. If you those who have put their faith in Moshiach Yeshua, even if they call him Jesus, who are sincere in their faith, you have claimed hold of the Jewish faith. Now, many people mistakenly call it Christianity because that's what they were taught. Hey, I'm not holding that against you. Many people think that Jesus taught the disciples using the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, like we have it. Many people think that Yeshua taught them in English, and that his name was actually Jesus, that the angel called him Jesus. His name was not Jesus, okay? His name was Yeshua, a Jew with a Jewish name. Not making fun of people who don't know that, because I didn't know it, but it's just, I have to emphasize that, because there's power there, there's knowledge there. As Yeshua said, you people worship what you do not know, we worship what we do know. For salvation comes of the Jews. There's power in knowing what you're doing. Knowledge is power, according to the Word of God, according to God. That's the first and second half of the Bible, baby. It's all in there, all right? Knowing what you're doing and why. And it's a Jewish understanding that teaches, it's a Jewish mindset that teaches the Shema, which basically means we will do and then we will understand. We will do and obey, and as we obey, God will give us more knowledge of what we're doing. It's all based on faith. We believe, we will do, and as we do, we'll gain knowledge, right? But without knowledge, my people perish, God says, for lack of knowledge. So we need this knowledge. It's very important. But going to the Jews are tricksters, I took an anthropology class, and I remember in anthropology class with I forgot her name, man. She was a cool teacher. This light-skinned older lady, gray hair, but she was still pretty young. But Miss Davenport, she was really nice, really nice at the University of North Texas in Denton. I went to school there, yes, and I took her class, and I remember in this anthropology class and cultural diversity class, we talked about the different cultures in the U.S. and history, and we briefly touched on the subject that apparently at one time in American history, you can look it up, in the history of the NBA, the National Basketball Association, maybe even before it was called that, the Jewish people dominated the NBA. I mean, they were like the top players, and like they were Jewish. And you had some people spreading, making anti-Semitic statements saying that it's because they're all tricksters. I forgot who it was that quoted them, that was quoted as saying, well, you know, think about the Artful Dodger from the, Archie comics? Or I don't know who that is or what it's from, but they're trying to say that, like him, they're all tricksters, you know, they're all tricky people who are, you know, cunning and all this, like Yaakov, right? So it just was really weird that you couldn't just be like, oh, well, wow, these Jewish people just happen to be dominating the basketball world, and that's pretty interesting. But it has to be because they're tricksters, they're tricky, so they're doing all this weird tricky stuff because they're witchcraft, and they're all, you know, demonic and stuff, and it's stupid. But let's look at what Yeshua says about them, as I know a lot of Christians will try to take this, have an anti-Semitic view of these Jesus killers, right? Well, Jesus himself, as you might call him, I know I call him by his real name, Yeshua, said it in Yochanan 1 verse 46 through verse 47, where he says it. But we're going to look at it. We're going to read Sefer Yochanan chapter 1 verse 46 through 48. Let's read this. Nathanael answered him. Okay, so this is when they were they're beginning to bring people are coming to discover who Yeshua is, and one of those people who have been told about him and is inquisitive of who this guy is he really the savior of Israel? Is he really the Moshiach that we've been told about? Is Nathanael, and here's what we read about him. Nathanael answered him. Well, let's read a little bit before so we can have better context. Yeah, Philip found Nathanael and found the one that Moshe wrote about in the Torah, the prophet. It's Yeshua, ben Joseph from Nazareth. Can anything good come there? Come and see, Philip said to him. Now, I love that interaction. He was straight up real. He wasn't like, oh, okay, let's see what happened. We'll see this man of God from Nazareth. Okay, brother. No, he was like, Nazareth? Like, what? That's like someone good coming out of South Dallas. I can say that because I'm a Dallas Texan, native. Like, South Dallas? The Messiah come from, yo, bro, South Dallas though, bro? Like, bro, I don't know. All right, man, look, I'll come with you and check it out, but I have my doubts, bro. Like, he's being real. He's not sugarcoating it. Like, can anything good come from you know, that's I imagine it must have been a pretty hood area. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, ancient day hood. Know what I mean? You know, graffiti all over the places. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Liquor store, you know, everywhere liquor stores, you know, bars and stuff. I don't know what Nigeria would actually look like. I'm talking nonsense. But verse 47, Yeshua saw Nathanael coming toward him and remarked about him, here's a true son of Israel. Nothing false in him. That's what he says about Nathanael. He says this guy is a true descendant of Israel, the man also known as Yaakov. This man has no duplicity in him. There's nothing false in him. He's not a deceiver, not a trickster. He's straightforward, honest. And as I do believe that in the Talmud they write about it, or maybe it's just a popular teaching amongst rabbis in the Orthodox world, non-Messianic Jewish world, that the whole issue with, as you may have already read about, Yaakov having to deceive his father for the birthright, for the blessing, because Esau despised his own birthright and sold it for a bowl of soup, a bowl of food, that Yaakov had to deceive him. That was a test. God was testing Yaakov to see if he would do it, because he was such an honest person. God was testing him with the whole ordeal concerning deceiving his father. That it went against the grain of who he naturally was, an honest man. And whether or not that's exactly what God did to test him, and that whether or not you believe that, the fact of the matter is, as the believer, right here in the book of John, right, he said it right here. This is the true son of Israel, man. Ain't nothing false in him. Ain't nothing false. He's straight up. So just want to point that out, man, because it's so easy to get caught up in these anti-Semitic thoughts, and check them. Check those thoughts. If someone brings it up, just quote, well, according to Yeshua, Israel is actually, Yaakov is an upright person and nothing false in him. So check that. Just the text is right there. Now looking at this, man, there's so many people to think about. Sorry, I'm chewing my lips. Got some dry skin that started to peel, so I'm chewing it off. Apologize. I'm sorry. Something. It was So, talking about how Rivka took instead of focusing on the obvious story about how Esau despised his own birthright, I want to focus on something else. I want to focus on the whole deal with marriage, actually, and picking a wife. Very interesting. It starts off how Yitzchak got married, and then we end talking about how his son went off to a wife from the same place, from the same people from which Yitzchak found his wife, right? Abraham took Sarah from beyond before he crossed over, before he went to go away from Terah, his father, to go where he was going to go. He got, Sarah from over there. Well, here we see Yaakov go to take a wife from Laban's daughters. Laban being the brother of Yitzchak's wife, Rivka. So interesting. So back. Read with English in English real quick. The most well-known story of this report, in which talks about the whole issue with this too. Verse 27. And Esau became a skillful hunter and outdoorsman, while Yaakov was a quiet man who stayed in the tents. Yitzchak favored Esau because he had a taste for game. Rivka favored Yaakov. One day, when Yaakov had cooked some stew, Esau came in from the open country, exhausted. Right, that's verse 29. I want to stop and talk about right quick. I think it's in the book of Yasher. It may have been HaSefer Enoch, the book of Enoch, or Hanoch, as it's called, which is, if you remember the term for the holiday we just had, Hanukkah or Chanukah, a same root word, Chanok, which means dedication or to dedicate or dedicated. And Enoch was definitely dedicated to God, so dedicated that he was taken up and never saw death. Right, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so it talks about this thing where Esau came into the open country exhausted, right? I want to talk about the fact that in the book of Yasher, it mentions, this is something interesting that you might want to read about. It says that apparently when Esau came in from the open country exhausted, that the reason why he was exhausted, and this is mentioned, it's detailed in the book of Yasher, I believe, is that he just got through killing Nimrod. Like, he killed him. Nimrod at one point around the early times after, sometime after Abraham was born, had a dream about him. Basically, he couldn't interpret the dream. One of his seers, one of his counselors, who was a seer and a worker of magic, told him that the vision meant that he was going to be killed by a descendant of Terach, and Terach was a servant of Nimrod. So he asked Terach to bring to him his son, and they brought him one of his children, whom was a brother of Abraham's, who was not Abraham, but his older brother, who was still a baby, a child, or I don't know if it was a twin. I don't know what the ages were, but he brought him one of his children, one of the children of his servants, his maidservants, whom he had a child with, and he killed him. He slaughtered him to prevent that vision from coming to pass, because the vision that the seer told him to interpret his dream was that one of the descendants of Terach would one day kill him. Well, Abraham was hidden in a cave in the meantime to keep him safe. But in time, Abraham eventually, this is extra biblical writings, by the way, came out, and at first thought that the sun was God, or is it the moon? And then he came to the realization that neither one of these could be God, and eventually came to faith that there must be a God who made all these things. And he went to the house of Shem also to hide him during that time, learn more about God. Shem ben Noach, Shem son of Noach. The word Shem in Hebrew meaning name, so that's pretty interesting, pretty cool. But he left from there, and eventually one of Abraham's descendants, as we know, Abraham fathered Yitzchak, who fathered Yaakov, and Esau. And Esau ended up, he was an outdoorsman and a kind of like, I believe, as it's described in the book of Yasher, and as they talk about it amongst the rabbis and sages, that he was a highwayman, more or less, involved in crooked things. When it talks about him being a great hunter, it wasn't just like Nimrod. It wasn't necessarily just in hunting animals, but in hunting people. He knew how to. He was an outdoorsman, man. He was one of those people that would run game on you, hold you up for your stuff. You know what I'm saying? More or less, more thug-like than his brother Yaakov. He was more of a thug, and I don't mean that as many people. I like to say that as a compliment, as a positive thing. Like, oh yeah, man, like I'm, totally like being a thug is an end thing, which is so bizarre to me, because it basically means that you murder people. How does that equate to being cool or anything? But hey, culture we live in, pop culture, gangster rap kind of helped popularize gang activity, and now everyone praises that. It's just what it is. But that's what he did. He actually fought, according to the book of Yasher. Maybe I can pull it up. But let me see, what's that? It's at, okay. That's what. Okay, cool. Basically, wait for a second. basically, what happens is that, sorry for that interruption, but basically, Nimrod is out strolling with two of his guards or bodyguards, and Esau happens upon him and sees him and decides to kill him. So chasing him down, he attacks him and assassinates him with his two bodyguards there. They don't perceive of him. He walks up and beheads Nimrod. He cuts off his head. Nimrod's head flies off and off the ground, and he's dead. His body is spewing blood, falling to the ground, and his two bodyguards are in shock, but they immediately start to fight Esau, and Esau has to fight for his life. And now he's entered a fight of desperation because he could easily die here. He's having to fight two of Nimrod's most trusted bodyguards, and he's fighting against them, and he's able to fight against them and successfully kill one, and I think he kills the other as well afterward. And afterwards takes Nimrod's garments. Nimrod was wearing the garments that God made for Abraham, for Adam when they had sinned, and he made them. They had sewn fig leaves, right? He made them garments from actual animal skin when he went out to hunt. It's talked about that when Nimrod had stolen these garments, because he was a descendant of Ham, who had stolen these garments from, I believe, Shem, who had them bequeathed to him, or to Noah. I forgot who had them. I think Noah gave them to Shem, or Noah had them himself. And Nimrod stole them from him, or Canaan stole them from his father, and Nimrod stole them from his father from Canaan. And basically, when he put them on, he felt God, strength was given him to be a hunter. And so Esau stole these garments from him to wear them himself. And after he had stolen them and had hidden them somewhere, he was exhausted because he had fought for his life and almost died. And in the course of fighting for his life, killed two more men after slaughtering their leader. And it's then that he ends up at this situation where we see in verse 29 when he approaches Yaakov, who's been cooking some stew after being exhausted, and he said to Yaakov, "Please let me gulp down some of that red stuff. I'm exhausted." This is why he was called Edom, red. Also, the fact that he was covered blood red when he was born, because of the fact that he was covered in hair, and the hair soaked up the blood from the womb when he was born. So he just looked like he was just covered in like blood. It was, there's also that to think about as well, why he was called Edom, or Hebrew for red. But Yaakov answered, "First tell me your rights as the firstborn." "Look, I'm about to die," said Esau. "What use to me are my rights as the firstborn?" Yaakov said, "First, swear to me." So he swore to him, thus selling his birthright to Yaakov. Then Yaakov gave him bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, got up, and went on his way. Thus Esau showed how deceitful his little brother Yaakov was. Right? Isn't that what it says? Thus Yaakov was proven. Thus Yaakov showed how deceitful he was. The trickster. Isn't that what it says? That's not what it says? That's it. What does it say? Thus Esau showed how little he valued his birthright. That's what's really going on there. I don't know about you, but if, let's say I had a father who had promised me inheritance, and he had a multi-million-dollar business as a herder, or a cattle herder, and my little brother's like, "Man, I'm hungry. I just got to playing basketball with the fellas. Be hungry. Trying to head back to the crib." I'm like, "Man, yo, I'm hungry." See my little brother, "Hey, yo, can I have some of that food?" He's like, "All right, cool. Give me your inheritance, and you can have it." I'm like, "You dumb. I'm gonna go to mom and just eat something. I don't care if I have to eat grass off the ground. Just start pulling up grass. I will eat anything else. I'm not about to give you my birthright, bro. Come on, man." He wasn't starving that bad. You could have just gone around the way, walked home, or done something, man. Go on and get your own food. Go to the local market. You sold your birthright. It's just, that's, according to God, he proved how little he wanted his own birthright. That was not against Yaakov, but against Esau. And you have to think, what was Yaakov's motives here? I believe that Yaakov, and this is what rabbis and sages talk about this, and I agree with their assessment that Yaakov saw the danger that Esau was to their future. Not just, it wasn't a matter of money. Ooh, I can inherit all the money from father if I have the inheritance. It was more along the lines of the destiny of our people, the destiny entrusted to Abraham, the Yitzhak, and now us as children. Which one of us will carry forth that destiny, that calling that God had on Yitzhak, right? Who's going to fulfill that? The promise is given to Abraham about a people that we would become a large nation. Who's going to carry that on? Yaakov was like, you know what? Esau doesn't care about that. Look at the life he lives. He's deceitful. He's a murderer. He's doing all these criminal things. How can I entrust Esau with the destiny of our people? So he takes it upon himself. You know what? I'm gonna go do it, and that's what happens here. So I guess I did end up talking about it. I was gonna skip over it in favor of more of other details that are normally skipped over, but just want to point that out. This was not Yaakov being deceitful. This was Yaakov trying to save the fate of the people of Abraham, of Kol Bnei Abraham, the descendants, all the children of Abraham. That's him trying to save them. All right, we gotta focus on that. We have to acknowledge that. Go on from there. Let's see. Let's go to next chapter. Famine. A famine came over the land, not the same as the first famine, which had taken place when Abraham was alive. Yitzhak went to Gerar, to Avimelech, king of the Philistines. Adonai appeared to him and said, "Don't go down into Mitzrayim, but live where I tell you. Stay in this land, and I will be with you and bless you, because I will give all these lands to you and to your descendants. I will fulfill the oath which I swore to Abraham your father. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. I will give all these lands to you, or to your descendants, and by your descendants all of the earth, all of the nations of the earth will bless themselves." All of this is because Abraham heeded what I said and did what I told him to do. He followed my mitzvot, my regulations, and my teachings. Just that first paragraph, man, so powerful. This is the fate that Yaakov is trying to protect by buying the birthright for Stu. This is why he had to do why he did it. This promise, he did not want this promise to be jeopardized by Esau's lack of morals and lack of a relationship with God, and not taking the teachings and understanding. The whole teaching and idea of monotheism was at that time something completely unique to Abraham and his people. One God, that's all Abraham. All the nations were all the same, and first having many gods, right? It's just how it was. Monotheism was unique to Abraham and his people, and they followed through with that. Not just one God, but the one true God. And that teaching and belief was inherited and taught and passed down generation to generation, dor la dor. And I think that's the main point being pointed out in this whole thing about Toldot, generations. They're passing on something important. Why did it have to miss Esau? Why did Esau have to miss out? He chose to be a certain kind of person. On one hand, and we read about this. This is a very heavy topic to discuss to some degree, but let's talk about it. Give me a minute. Very important, man. Here we go. Malachi. Malachi. I think means I think it actually has to do with Malachi as well. But I love you, says Adonai. But you ask, how do you show us your love? Adonai answers, Esau was Yaakov's brother. Yet I loved Yaakov, but hated Esau. I made his mountains desolate and gave his territory over to desert jackals. Now I want to point this out because let's see. I want to focus on the other topic I want to talk about. I'm not going to go into that. What I will focus on instead is this. At the very end of this portion, we see where verse 1, chapter 28, Bereshit 28, verse 1 through 9. Bereshit also called this Bereshit in the beginning. The last verses of let's look at chapter 27, 21. Esau hated his brother because Esau hated him. Is about to, he's approaching death. He wants to give his blessing to his firstborn before he dies, and even though Yitzhak apparently had not gone to God to ask him about this blessing, and maybe I don't know what the deal was, or if Yitzhak knew what God told his wife Rivka about the older son serve the younger. Whether he knew or not, he was going to bless Esau and call it a day. Wouldn't Rivka have said something? Maybe she didn't because she thought, well, he loves Esau, so I know I'm not going to be able to convince him. I don't know what the case was there. There's probably more to be said about that. But we know what happened, that Rivka got with Yaakov, had him to dress up like his brother, made some food for him, got the blessing. Esau came in afterward, couldn't get the blessing, cried, hated his brother, and now we get to verse 41. That's paraphrasing it. I know there's some things missed, but there's something I want to focus on more important. Esau hated his brother because of the blessing his father had given him. Esau said to himself, the time for mourning my father will come, and then I'll kill my brother Yaakov. The words of Esau were told to Rivka, who sent for Yaakov, her younger son, and said to him, here, your brother Esau is comforting himself over you by planning to kill you. However, therefore, my son, listen to me, get up and escape to Lavan, my brother, in Haran. Stay with him a little while until your brother's anger subsides. Your brother's anger will turn away from you, and he will forget about what you did to him. Then I'll send and bring you back from there. Why should I lose both of you on the same day? Why should I lose both of you on the same day? Interesting verse. That can be taken a number of ways, and I wonder how it says in Hebrew. But on one point, you could say, well, obviously what she's saying is, I'll lose my youngest son, and then if he becomes a murderer, then he'll be put to death, then I'll lose both my sons. That's probably what it means. But I feel like there's some hidden meaning there. Why should I lose both of you on the same day? I think there's some hidden meaning there. It's very interesting what's said there. But back to the main thing I want to talk about. Verse 46, Rivka said to Yitzhak, this is her husband obviously, I'm sick to death of Hittite women. If Yaakov marries one of the Hittite women, like those who live here, my life won't be worth living. Married women not descended from Aram, but women of the Hittite foreign people, and they who they say in the Talmud that they were burning incense to other gods, and the incense would cause blindness and cause and it was like causing causing the cough, and it was just a very problematic thing that they did, offering this foreign incense to these foreign gods in their house. So it's just like, if it were me, I wouldn't be having it. But if it were my daughters-in-law doing that in my house, no, I don't think so. So Yitzhak called Yaakov, and after blessing him, charged him. He charged him. Bereshit 28. You are not to choose a wife from the Hittite women. Go now to the house of Betuel, your mother's father, and choose a wife from the daughters of Lavan, your mother's brother. May El Shaddai bless you. make you fruitful, and increase your descendants until they become a whole assembly of peoples. And may he give you the blessing which he gave Abraham, you and your descendants with you, so that you will possess the land you will travel through, the land God gave to Abraham. So Yitzhak sent Yaakov away, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Arami, the brother of Rivkah, Yaakov's and Esau's mother. Now Esau saw that Yitzhak had blessed Yaakov and sent him away to Padan Aram to choose a wife from there, and that as he blessed him, he charged him, "You are not to choose a Canaanite woman as your wife," and that Yaakov had listened to his father and mother and gone to Padan Aram. Esau also saw that the Canaanite women did not please Yitzhak, his father. So Esau went to Ishmael and took, in addition to the wives he already had, Mahalat, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebayat, to be his wife. So he had two. Let's take one more from the right, and it's just, you can see what he's doing is trying to please his parents. He doesn't have the discernment to say to himself, these are not healthy women to choose as a wife, because he had no fear of God in him. You understand? He was doing this to get favor from them, to get for himself, not because he himself realized the mistake he had made. He was trying to be a people pleaser, trying to gain their favor. Ishmael himself is a story about him and his wife, where Abraham, after Sarah had argued about the fact that she didn't want Ishmael being raised with her son, Yitzhak, himself, Abraham went to God about it, and God said, "Listen to your wife. This is from me. For the blessing that I talk about will go through Yitzhak and all his generations, but not the same with Ishmael." And so Abraham said, "If only Ishmael could live in your presence." And God said, "I hear you. I will bless Ishmael because he came from you. I will bless him. He will have kings and queens descend from him too. But the blessing that I specified for your people will go through. Who is to be called your seed will be in what is to be called your seed is in Yitzhak." So that's a very important distinction. And when Abraham, there's a story, I think it's written in the Talmud. It may be written in the book of Yashar. I forgot where it's written at, but I remember hearing about it. When Abraham wanted to go visit Ishmael, his son, after they had sent him and his mother away, and Sarah, Abraham's wife, made him promise that he won't get off his camel when he goes to visit his son, or off his horse, whatever he was riding. And he promised. So when he went to go visit his son, he stayed on his camel, but he called out to Ishmael. And when he went to go see him, Ishmael wasn't there yet. His wife was there. And when he approached, his wife that he had chosen, that Ishmael had chosen, was beating his children and was cursing. And when Abraham approached, the woman was very mean to him. And he asked him, "Have you seen Ishmael? Where's the owner of this tent?" And the woman said to him, "How should I know?" And was basically being rude to him, didn't offer him anything, and was being rude. And when Ishmael finally got back and he saw his father there, my dad's here, came to visit him, and Abraham said to him, my son, take this tent peg that you have and cast it far away from you, because it's not a good tent peg. It won't keep the tent safe. Find you a stronger, better tent peg and put it in place of that one. I'm paraphrasing. And so Ishmael wondered what he talked about, and then he left. And he realized that his father was telling him about getting a new wife. This wife you're chosen is not good. And so Ishmael understood what his father was saying, sent his wife away from him, and I guess like father like son, Abraham sent his wife away, Ishmael sent his wife away, and went and married someone else. And a second time, his father Abraham came to visit him. When he visited him, he said to him, he got there, and again Ishmael was gone, he was at work or doing whatever. But his wife, who was there, he welcomed him and was very happy to see him. And he asked him who he was. He says, "I'm here to see my son Ishmael." And actually, he said, "Where is the owner of this tent? Where is he?" And the woman had answered, "He's away, but let me serve you and help you." And she was teaching the children, not beating them. And she went and got drink and food and drink and got it and prepared it for him and washed his feet. I believe she washed his feet. And when he got back, when Ishmael returned, his father said to him, I don't know if she washed his feet because he was on the camel. I don't know if she may not wash his feet, but she offered him food and drink. And he said to him, "This tent peg that you've chosen is good and strong, and certainly it will keep the tent safe." and then again paraphrasing, and then he left. The whole teaching being that choosing a good wife, choosing the right kind of wife. This is a huge undertaking in the Jewish community, Orthodox, non-religious, secular Judaism, Messianic Judaism, believers in Moshiach, Yeshua. It is a huge thing in the Jewish world, choosing a wife. Now, we know that through Yishmael came what is known now as Islam. And one of the teachings in Islam is one of their weapons against, just in general, especially against the Jewish people, is the weapon of the womb, as it's talked about amongst Islamic believers, as I've heard talked about, and you can talk about it, the weapon of the womb. In other words, have many children. That's I can't find anything in the Torah against that. It's a weapon to them. It's seen as a means of conquest. And I wish it were the case that amongst my Jewish people that we had more children, more descendants amongst Messianic people. But as it is, naturally people are going to have struggles with that, having children. But it's a huge thing in Middle Eastern culture, even amongst Islamic people, even with the Muslim people, as far as I've read, having descendants and using them as a means to have an advantage in the world. Amongst the Jewish people, it is so important to pass down these teachings, right? And I know that it's a common in Jewish culture. It's believed that they recognize when in 1948, I believe, after 1948, when the people of God, the people of Israel came home and they won back their capital, Jerusalem, in the 6-Day War, and all this stuff happened, and they won back their independence in 1948. I believe one thing that was happening as they were trying to welcome people back to Israel is that they checked the genealogy through the mother, and that it was the bloodline through the mother that was recognized. And I think the teaching, the understanding was that the wife is at home with the children, teaching them. Now, I'm paraphrasing. I'm not quoting the entire understanding of that, but correct me if I'm wrong. You've read the Talmud. I think it's written in there. I forget where exactly it's written at. I think it's in the Talmud. Maybe you know, or maybe you historically know about that. You can correct me in the comments. Hey, tell me about it. But the understanding that the wife raised the children in the Jewish teachings, right? Now, personally, I know that there's a big teaching. There's a book called Shalom by a man, I think known as Rabbi Shalom Arush, who wrote in the book called Shalom. No, it's not called Shalom. It's called Garden of Shalom. Pardon me, Slicha. And it's about peace in the home, Shalom Bayit, which is a Jewish concept of being peace in the family, in the home. For the wife and children, the husband and wife, and all that, and or just anyone in the home. And it specifies that the wife, one of the things that Rabbi Shalom Arush talked about was that you would let the wife raise the children. Don't bother her. Don't question things at home. Don't question how the children are being raised. Just let her take care of it. I do not subscribe to that. Again, this is a rabbi who rejects Yeshua as the Messiah, as far as I know. He doesn't acknowledge him, so I'm not worried about acknowledging him, if that makes any sense. I'm not going to disrespect him as a man, as a person, as a Jew, as a rabbi especially, but I don't take his words to heart. I take the words of Rabbi Shaul, before I'll take the words of Rabbi Shalom Arush. No disrespect. All right? We need to be very careful, on a side note, as Messianic believers, about taking the words of non-Messianic rabbis. I don't care if he doesn't even call himself a rabbi, because he's Messianic and he knows he hasn't been officially titled that from a yeshiva, Jewish yeshiva. If someone is teaching you the word of God and they have confessed Yeshua as the Messiah, test their words. Now, I'm not saying that if they don't acknowledge Yeshua that you can't trust a word they say. There are many people who honestly are seeking for truth, and God is opening their eyes to Moshiach. They might not believe now, but they're getting there. They're on their way, right? But still, we have to be careful about these things. People who do not receive Yeshua as Messiah, be careful with their words. I don't quote them as law. I'm not going to call them wise because they're Jewish and they're rabbis. If they reject Yeshua, right? I'm not going to put my faith in their wisdom. But that being said, there are Christian pastors and Christian authors and Christian speakers whom have a better understanding of Torah than even rabbis do, because they trust not in their credentials, not in their background or their genealogy or their traditions, but they trust in the Spirit of God. And that's what ultimately teaches. That's where wisdom comes from, not from Jewish tradition, not from door la door generation, not from my rabbi, but from Rabbi Yeshua, through whom comes the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh. All right, and if you believe in Yeshua, you've been immersed, you come to faith. It's speaking through you and in you. Listen to it. We test the spirits. We don't just believe in our own. We read the Torah portion for ourselves and we think, oh well, I know wisdom. No, we take the things and we go to the congregation and we share these things with the congregation, with our brothers and sisters, our achim ve'achiyot, our fathers and mothers, our avim ve'imot, and we try to figure out, hey, am I getting it, or am I missing something, or is this interpretation? What do you think of it? We do test ourselves. We go to people and we talk about Torah. We don't go on our own to get revelation. That can be dangerous. But at the same time, be wary of listening to authors and people who do not acknowledge Yeshua. There's a book that I read from a Christian author that was actually very, very discerning, and nothing in it, very few things in it were problematic as far as the Jewish understanding of the Tanakh. And he was a Christian author, but he even quoted rabbis and sages because he saw wisdom there, right? He's quoting the Tanakh and the Jewish interpretation of the scriptures, the traditional Jewish interpretation. My interpretation may be very, very non-traditional, to say the least. Some of you may have more colorful language for it. And that's okay, but I just want to point that out because the understanding that in the book by Garden of Shalom, I don't subscribe to that. The wife, yes, definitely is a homemaker for sure, but I'm not going to entrust my child rearing only to her. I'm responsible as a man of God to help with that. I think I want to talking about raising the family, the importance of choosing a wife with whom you can have a family. Okay, I think this is an underlying key point of this whole entire Parashah, generations, right? Passing something down. In this essence, we see where the mother was more concerned with passing things down to who she recognized as the rightful, trustworthy descendant to carry on the mission of the people of Abraham, Bnei Abraham, of who would be the people of Yisrael, the mission, which is to seek forth for the salvation of the world. There's something big happening, and God is preparing through the people and securing, first of all, a place. Maybe her thoughts were, you know what, God said He'd give to us this land, and we need a home, we need a place to live, to have a future. Esau is more concerned about pleasing himself. Yaakov is a man of learning and knowledge and seeking forth knowledge about the things of God. He's more in tune with God. We need to pass this on to him. How can I help with that? Maybe that was her purpose. But the fact is, in this marriage, we see clearly where Yitzchak was seemed less in tune with the Spirit of God than his wife was. Is that always the case? Not always, but Yitzchak is still a man of God, but he was not. He was blinded by his favoritism toward Esau. Whereas Rivka was not. I'll suffice to say maybe she liked Esau or Yaakov so much because of the fact that he was more of a godly, had grown to be a godly man who was trying to please God and had in his concern the future of his people. It wasn't just concerned with living thug life like Esau was. So there's probably more to say about it. And if you have some things to say, some debates to maybe want to debate about things said, I don't think. So I'm about that. Wait. I had no idea this one was even messaging me. I had no this one even on my chat. For me, okay. That's cool. But okay, this is fun. Anyway, sorry about that. I rejoice to be able to pinpoint what I'm saying. This last part of what I'm saying is that the importance, I think one of the biggest things about this Torah portion, by its namesake, Toldot, which can also mean generations, also means history, is that that's pretty much our history, right? Our generations. This is the definition. A big part of history in itself is generation to generation, dor la dor. We have to think about passing on our inheritance, and as people of God, Talmidim of Moshiach Yeshua, through whom comes, everything that is meant of what it is to be Jewish. The most important Jew in all of history, the King of the Jews. We have to acknowledge this and walk in this. We have to pass it on, and look at our families. I know I've been at a congregation where the husband and wife, their son and daughter, didn't want to go anymore and just kind of stopped participating, and they just, okay, let it happen. I was raised by a woman who was, single parent, non-denominational, Christian. And we went to church. Okay, you weren't gonna sit at home on Sundays, say, I don't believe in your God, I'm just gonna sit at home. Now I say that I believe my mom would have been fair to acknowledge our own personal choices and what kind of God we believe in. But the fact of the matter is, she made sure to raise us up in that way. Not once did we ever consider, I'm just gonna stay home. That was never an option. I think maybe one time my sister tried that, but for the most part, I knew better. But I had a personal walk with God, and there's no way I'm not going to go to church anyway. To go with the congregation, congregational meetings. So that's the thing about it. We have to pass it on. We have to look at as young, to all my peoples who are unmarried, who are looking to get married, and looking at having children one day, having descendants, to have a godly understanding, of how to lead our families, and choosing a right spouse so we can raise families and raise descendants and pass on this faith in Messiah Yeshua. It's so important. That's what I want to leave you with. Let's not be deceived by the lust of the eyes or temporal, and not at all what's going to help us as far as choosing the right kind of mate. So as the Book of Wisdom says, a woman of valor who can find. So in the meantime, that's gonna wrap it up for this teaching on Parashat Toldot, Parashat 6. May what you hear bless you. I hope that what you heard blessed you, and I'm looking forward to doing the next Parashah, maybe even later on today. But Shalom to you guys, and until next time, Shalom Rav.